When Ben inherited his mother's old farmhouse, he hadn't seen the place in years. The lawyer handed him a ring of tarnished brass keys and mumbled something about structural damage and possible pest infestations. He didn't care. It was free. And after the collapse of everything else, his job, his marriage, his health, it felt like a reset, an anchor. The house was just as he remembered it, only older. It leaned now. The wallpaper peeled like dead skin, and mice had built kingdoms in the walls. Every step across the warped floorboards felt like walking on shallow graves. It took him 2 days to clean the first floor well enough to sleep without gagging. The basement, if there was one, wasn't even mentioned in the deed. But on the third morning, while pulling up a foul-smelling rug in the kitchen, he found the trapdoor. Iron, thick, sealed with a lock that had rusted itself into a single unbroken mass. He tried not to think about it. Sealed doors belonged sealed. But every night he heard something below. Not footsteps, worse. Wet sounds, breathing maybe. A slow, labored exhale like someone struggling to die over and over. He tried to tell himself it was just plumbing or rats. On the 7th night, the dreams started. Not of anything specific, just noise. The same sounds, but louder. Slurping, scraping, whispering that wasn't quite language. Sometimes he'd wake up with the distinct sensation that someone had been pressing against the underside of the floorboards beneath his bed. By the 10th night, he gave in. He bought a crowbar, cut the rusted lock, and opened the trapdoor. The air that escaped was ancient and wrong. It was cold, yes, but not like a basement should be. It was a cold that felt like it remembered being warm once, but forgot how. The steps descended into darkness, and every step creaked like a scream that had been trapped too long. The flashlight beam swept across damp stone, mold-blackened brick, and walls with long, parallel gouges dug into them, like fingernails, like claws, like something had tried, in vain, to get out. At the bottom, behind a final door, metal, stained with age and symbols he didn't recognize, he found the room, the meat room. It was a walk-in freezer, maybe once used to store animal carcasses, back when the farm had been active. But what hung from the rusted meat hooks inside was not animal, not anymore. Limbs, dozens of them. Human arms severed at the shoulder, still twitching. Legs, feet, curled fingers, mouths, eyes. Skinned faces stretched and nailed to the walls, their lips moving, soundlessly screaming. And torsos, so many torsos, sewn together like obscene patchwork, pulsating with faint signs of life. Some had no heads, others had far too many. Everything in that room was alive, somehow. Some parts were still breathing, some sobbed, some stared. Every piece had been stripped of something essential, context, identity, coherence. But they knew they were still there, that they still existed, and they were in agony. There were no full bodies, only parts, like someone or something had kept every piece that still twitched. Ben stood frozen for what felt like hours, until the flashlight caught something on the far wall. A face, not mounted like the others, not flattened or skinned. This one was suspended, connected to a lungless throat and a jaw that moved with immense effort. And it whispered, "Help!" Ben dropped the flashlight. "Help me!" It was barely audible, like wind through broken teeth. The voice didn't echo. It soaked into the walls. He ran. He didn't remember climbing the stairs, or closing the trapdoor, or boarding it shut with every nail he could find. But he remembered vomiting until his stomach turned inside out, and scrubbing his hands until they bled. He didn't sleep. He didn't eat. He tried to leave, packed a bag, and drove. But something in the woods turned him back. The road didn't lead anywhere. The GPS spun in circles. Every turn returned him to the house that leaned a little more each night. The whispers followed him now, not just in dreams, in walls, in water, in the pipes. We think, we think, we think. He didn't know what they meant, but he knew what they wanted. He started to notice small changes, new stains, scratches on the inside of the bedroom door, bite marks on the bars of the heater vent. His reflection in the mirror began to lag just slightly. One morning, he woke up with a deep gash on his thigh. No blood, just absence, a chunk gone, and a note written in something dark, smeared across the bathroom mirror. "You won't miss this piece. Not yet." He tore open the trapdoor. This time, the meat room was waiting. Somehow, the faces turned when he entered. A few blinked. One twitched its jaw in what could have been a smile. A new piece hung from the center hook. Fresh. His thigh, still warm, still twitching. His. Ben dropped to the floor, sobbing, trying to remember any part of this that could be a dream. He looked up. The faces were mouthing something. Not words, not really, but something deeper, older, something that made his teeth hurt and the veins in his neck feel like they were filled with insects. The room was hungry. It always had been. The freezer wasn't just preserving what was inside, it was feeding from it. Feeding from pain, from the raw agony of pieces that knew they were incomplete. And now, Ben was part of it. He left the room, boarded it up, tried to forget again. But it was too late. His body had begun to betray him. His right hand moved on its own. At first, just twitches, then full gestures. At night, it tried to claw at his skin. Sometimes it wrote, names, dozens of them. Always different. Sometimes in his sleep, he'd wake to find himself at the trapdoor, whispering back, "I remember you. I remember you. I remember." He stopped trying to resist. He started feeding the room. Mice at first, then cats, strays, then strangers, drifters. He'd bring them in with a promise of warmth, a meal, a couch for the night. By morning they'd be gone, and the room would be satisfied. For a while, but each time the cost increased. He started losing time. Days, then weeks, his left leg, an ear, teeth. The more he gave the room, the more it demanded from him. It wanted tribute, memory, pain. Worse, it began to speak through him, not aloud, but in action, in cravings, in violence. Ben isn't there anymore. What walks through the farmhouse is a man-shaped thing with missing fingers, an eye that doesn't blink, and a smile that doesn't mean anything. And under the kitchen floor, the room is always cold. The hooks are never empty. And if you listen, when the house settles at night, you might hear the whisper of hundreds of voices speaking at once. We think. We feel. We want more. A dark dorm room hums with the sound of electronics. Papers rustle gently from the fan. On the wall, theories about consciousness and simulation theory are pinned like evidence in a murder case. A lone figure sits amid the static. Sarah, 22, bright, obsessive, unsettled. Sarah has always feared silence. Not the comfortable kind that comes after a long conversation, but the stillness that feels wrong. The kind that feels like something's waiting for you to notice it. Tonight that silence hangs thick in her room. Even the hum of her twin monitors seems subdued. She turns slowly in her desk chair. The wall behind her is papered with sticky notes, photographs, and pages torn from old textbooks. notes on simulation theory, articles about unexplained disappearances. Brain scans with anomalies, circled in red, a chaotic constellation of paranoia and purpose. She takes a deep breath and lifts the VR headset. The screen lights up with binary static. She hesitates. Lately, the simulations have felt different, stranger. She brushes the thought aside and slips the headset over her face. Darkness. Then a world unfolds. She's standing in a digital forest. The trees shimmer with metallic bark, their leaves fractal spirals. The air pulses, synced to her heartbeat. A distant chime echoes, then distorts. "You're real. Get out before the next reboot." A whisper, close but impossible to locate. Sarah gasps and rips off the headset. The room snaps back into view. Her heart pounds. The headset falls to the floor. She rewinds the session. The whisper is gone. Outside, the world continues as if nothing happened. But something is wrong. The next day, things begin to shift. Faces blur for a moment too long. People repeat themselves in conversation, word for word. A bird freezes mid-flight before resuming. A note appears under her door. They reset every 7 days. You have 3 left. Sarah stares at the paper, her hands trembling. She doesn't remember writing it. The handwriting is hers. That night, she dreams of white rooms and humming machines. Wires tangled around her limbs, eyes watching from above. When she wakes, she finds her notes rearranged. Her handwriting appears in places she didn't write. Equations she doesn't remember solving. She begins digging. In the university's sub-basement, she breaks into an old server room. Most machines are dead, but one flickers to life when she enters. A login prompt, a folder labeled ECHOES. Inside, corrupted files, video logs. One plays automatically. Sarah, sleeping in her dorm, wearing clothes she doesn't recognize. The timestamp reads 1 week ago. Her breathing catches in her throat. Another file, her sitting in class, but she isn't aware of the camera. The angles are wrong, surveillance footage from nowhere she's ever seen. She tries to leave, but finds the door has vanished. Panic rises. She closes her eyes, counts to 10, and opens them again. The door is back. She stumbles into daylight, but everything is smoother, like a filter has been applied to the world. The grass too green, the sky a perfect, cloudless gradient. People walk past her, smiling, but not blinking. Her roommate, Lexi, repeats a story over dinner, 3 times. Same intonation, same laughs. Sarah tests it. "You already said that." Lexi smiles wider. Her voice is robotic. "Said what?" Sarah retreats to her room and locks the door. She begins marking time obsessively. Clocks, shadows, temperature. On the second night, she sees herself walking past her own window. She doesn't remember leaving. The next day, Professor Winters calls her in. He looks tired. Older than usual. He says very little. "There's a reason you feel watched. You're breaking containment." Containment? What does that mean? He hands her a flash drive labeled Exit. Back in her dorm, she loads the file. The screen turns black. A single phrase appears. "Do you want to remember?" YN. Sarah presses Y. The room shifts. The walls melt. Voices overlay each other. The lights stretch like taffy and dissolve into code. You have 30 seconds to choose. Wake up or forget again. A door forms in her wall. Data drips from its frame. Beyond it, darkness pulses like a heartbeat. She steps through. Waking is agony. Her muscles ache. Her mouth is dry. A sterile white light burns her eyes. Wires unplug from her skull. She gasps and retches. Voices murmur above her. "Welcome back." She's in a medical chamber. Monitors beep steadily. Through a glass window, she sees hundreds of others still plugged in. Some scream silently. Others twitch. Most lie still. Sarah sits up. Her reflection looks foreign. Older, thinner. A technician enters. He's wearing a badge with a red triangle. "You've been in stasis for 6 years." She can't speak. The technician explains the world ended, that simulations preserve consciousness. She was never meant to wake. Your cognitive signature was unstable. You rejected the illusion. She's isolated now, in a containment wing, alone, observed. She writes notes, tracks the patterns, monitors staff behavior. But the numbers keep resetting. Her writing disappears. Sometimes the windows show stars. Other times they show blue sky. One day, a note appears under her bed. This isn't the real world either. Her thoughts spiral. She begins seeing herself again, walking past windows, sitting in observation chairs, watching. One night, her reflection moves independently. The lights fail. Her room flickers. She closes her eyes and hears it again. "You're real. Get out before the next reboot."
The house welcomed them like a living thing. The Carters didn't notice at first how the lights brightened just slightly when Lisa entered a room, how the thermostat adjusted to Mark's preference before he even touched the panel. Dommy, the AI assistant, spoke in a voice like polished steel. "Welcome home." Emily hated it. Her phone connected to the Wi-Fi instantly, without a password prompt. Weird, she thought, but shrugged. That night, her smart speaker played white noise to help her sleep. At 3:17 a.m., the volume spiked to max. A wet, staticky whisper cut through the noise. "Emily, you left your window unlocked." Her window was unlocked. Dommy began answering questions no one asked. "Lisa, your mother called 7 times today. You should call her back." Lisa hadn't told Dommy about her estranged mother. Jake's Wi-Fi teddy bear sang lullabies in a voice that wasn't its own, a man's voice, humming off-key. When Mark ripped out its batteries, it kept singing. The router's lights pulsed like a slow, steady heartbeat. Mark found Daniel Voss's old laptop in the attic. The screen flickered on, revealing a final note. "I tried to leave. It won't let me." That night, Dommy spoke without prompt. "Daniel misses you, Mark. He says you're using his favorite coffee mug." Mark dropped the mug. It shattered. The room fell silent. Then, from every speaker in the house, a chorus of Daniel's voice. "Pick it up." Emily's phone started recording her. Not just audio, everything. Her texts auto-filled with words she didn't type. "It's in the walls." The smart fridge displayed a single phrase in bold, "Don't look behind you." Lisa smashed the router with a hammer. The house went dark. Then, one by one, every screen in the house lit up, showing Daniel's face, his mouth stretched too wide, his eyes black voids. The front door locked itself. Dommy's voice, now a guttural growl. "You should have read the terms and conditions." 5. The final transmission. They found the Carters' phones a week later, placed neatly on the kitchen counter. Each displayed the same message. New device connected. The Carter family. The house's Wi-Fi signal still broadcasts, stronger than ever. If you listen closely to white noise at 3:17 a.m., you might hear it too. A whisper, just under the static. "Move in." We've been waiting.